Workshop is about being empowered to navigate a VUCA world. My name is Paula Stewart. I'm a consultant and a coach and trainer. Recently an Xscale coach and trainer. Rich Stewart is my husband and my partner in life, and we collaborate all of the time, even more so this year. And then Donna Wells is another partner, and she is a talent acquisition consultant. She's sorry she could not be here tonight. She's having some health issues. So my husband and I spent a lot of time thinking about Agile, coming up with games that you can see on our website. A lot of people use those games throughout the world. And you're welcome to use any of them, or even to write back and suggest some changes. So Rich will be moving people into breakout rooms and back again. He's going to be monitoring for questions in the chat and calling on you during Q&A. I'm not sure everybody is familiar with Zoom, so some real quick instructions. To raise your virtual hand, you can click the participants icon, and at the bottom, you should be able to see either raise hand or some other options. Do you guys see that? I see some heads shaking. Thanks. Thanks for letting me know. If you're on a smartphone or tablet, then you would tap the screen. There's an ellipse, the 3 dots. Click on that, and then you select the raise hand option. So our request. In this workshop, we ask you to explore different ideas with an open mind. Some of these ideas may not be different for you. To be present. And so we do ask everyone to turn on their videos because we find that makes a big difference in people being connected and present with each other. And then participate and collaborate with each other. If you do, you will gain valuable insights and possibly even connections to people in this workshop. So our approach is experiential and collaborative, which means that we're going to experiment with some things. We're going to try some things out. We're going to spend a lot of time talking to each other and learning from each other. For the last year or so, I've been part of a global business agility learning ecosystem. And that has really made a difference to me exponentially on understanding the world of agility. A learning ecosystem is where we get together and we're creating all of the time workshops, training, sharing experiences with each other. And the one that I'm most associated with is called Xscale. The great thing about Xscale is that there's a lot of people that organically work together and support each other, and they're from all over the world. And they also are in different roles. So we've got some CEOs, we've got some program managers or PMO directors, we've got business owners, professional trainers, professional Agile enterprise coaches. So we get a lot of different understandings and learnings. I came across this just about an hour ago. And to me, learning ecosystems and how they work is the way that I'd like to see organizations work. And at the end of the day, if we can create a gentler, saner society, the way to do that would be to create a gentler economy. So we're going to ask you to turn on your videos, and if you're familiar with the controls, you should be able to see where you can see everybody's faces, different ways that you can look at people. You can scroll up and down. You can look at the gallery view where you can see a bunch of people's faces at one time. So we're going to ask you guys to take a moment and just look at each other. Like really look at who is here to share this time with you. So many beautiful faces and really feel connected. Thank you so much for being willing to do that. Okay. So the intention of this workshop is to understand VUCA and how to lead in a VUCA world, understand how the Cynefin framework can help us manage complexity, understand how breadth first systems thinking, mental models and patterns create high-performing teams. Understand the renewed trend towards business agility. It's been around for a while, but in the last, I'd say 5, 6, I'd say in the last year, I've seen quite the trend from thought leaders who are focused on the breadth-first approach using business agility. At the end of this workshop, we will send out some wonderful references and resources that we think you'll like for additional learning and growth. So first we dealt with pandemic, and we still are. It was a surprise. We were not prepared for the scope or the impact. As a result of that, the economy has been impacted. I've heard somebody say recently that this is the worst economy since the Great Depression. Some industries have been impacted more than others. There are people that are out of business that were not before. And then as a result of that economic impact, there's been social unrest. When we're talking about VUCA, we also want to think about what's the solution, or how can we deal with this more effectively? So V is for volatility, right? Rapid and unpredictable changes. What's the way to deal with that kind of a world? Having a vision, the possibility for the future, regardless of what may happen tomorrow or the next day or 6 months from now, something that keeps you going. Even better, if you as leaders can encourage the creation of a unified purpose and vision within your organizations. Uncertainty. So that's where we don't know what's going to happen next, what the surprises may be in our future. And we deal with that using empathy. Empathy for our customers, empathy for our coworkers, for the people that we serve as Scrum Masters and Agile coaches. Because right now, everybody has lots of other things going on in their life. They're going to show up distracted. And sometimes they're not going to turn on the video. They're not going to be completely there. So having some empathy for that makes a big difference. Complexity. That's where we know that there's a lot of connections between different things, but the cause and effect of those connections is not clear. So we answer complexity by having an ecosystem's breadth-first view. So instead of saying, okay, I see this problem, I'm going to address it, and always working that way, we want to take a bigger view, a systems perspective, see all of the things that are impacting this organization or our team, and then make a decision about what makes the biggest impact. Cynefin framework is one of these breadth-first approaches. Then we've got ambiguity, which we deal with using empirical process control. That means we don't know the next action that we will take, and more importantly, the effect of that, the impact. We don't always know that in this complex world. So Dave Snowden came up with a Cynefin framework in 1999 for knowledge management and organizational strategy. And he used it for analyzing policymaking within the George W. Bush administration and the impact of religion in creating policy, or the nature of response to bioterrorism. It's been used to help describe and categorize problems in organizations and even with agile transformations. And then we got a chance to talk to Dave Snowden on Tuesday. And what he said was that right now he's working on a contract with some long-term politicians on both the Republican and the Democratic side of the House in order to come up with local solutions to local problems. We provide you a link that explains his approach that he's using called Big, Thick, Rich Data. And that is the combination of storytelling in communities, along with big data and quantitative analytics. So I know some of you probably know this by heart. And what I needed to do was make sure that everybody was on the same page. So the Cynefin framework can be organized into two systems, ordered and unordered, and 5 domains: obvious, complicated, complex, chaotic, and complete disorder. I'm sure all of you have noticed that in many areas of our life right now, because of the pandemic, because of the economics, because of social unrest, things that used to be obvious and ordered have somehow now become unordered. So I think it's good to just acknowledge, yeah, that's the kind of complexity we're dealing with right now. It empowers us. So from the ordered, we have these 5 domains. We have these 5 domains, and every one of these domains have a definition that relates to cause and effect relationships, as well as the approach we can take to make decisions or solve problems, as well as the type of practices that we can use in those domains. So obvious is where cause and effect is predictable. We've seen this before, very routine. An example of this to me is when I was working for an infrastructure manager, bringing in enterprise solutions, and I had a best of breed performance monitoring tool. It was based on best practices. It allowed us to quickly identify any changes that were observed and measured, categorize those changes based on thresholds, and then we knew how to respond. Complicated would be where we need somebody who's more maybe a subject matter expert or we also need trend analysis. We need to look at this cause and effect relationship over time. So here we need to sense, then we need to analyze exactly what we're seeing with these different data points, for example, and how do we respond? This is where good practices are possible. An example of this could be, we have a non-critical bug that arises in production. We go through our process of triaging that bug, determining what the underlying root cause was, and we respond. Complex is where we really can't see cause and effect proactively. We can only see in retrospect, and it's not repeatable. This is where we've got to go out and probe. Probe means that we're going out, we're running small experiments, we're testing to see what comes back. So we probe first, we observe, and then we respond. This is where emergent practice arises. Complexity, to me, a good example of this would be where we know we have customers, we know that they need certain types of data, but we don't know exactly the kinds of data that will make the biggest difference to them. Sure, we've done our research and we've done our modeling and we've done our interviews, we've looked at the reports, but there's still some question about it. So we might, in fact, put a number of dashboards together and allow them as a pilot to take a look at that and see what they prefer and what they're actually using. Chaotic is where there's no cause and effect relationship perceivable. This is where we're in crisis mode. We have to do triage. We have to act first, then determine what the actions caused, what was the impact, and then adjust our response. This, for example, might be a restaurant during the pandemic. Disorder. So if you've been in an organization that suddenly starts to lose a lot of revenue and people start leaving, I hope you never have that experience, but if you do, you'll probably observe that there's a lot of disorder. And what you can also observe is that leadership tends to fall back on and double down on the way that they've always led. And for many, that's command control. So the way that I think we can address this is proactively ensuring we have the same mindsets, that we have a growth mindset, that we're on the same page in terms of underlying values and principles, and that we see that we've described mental models that allow us to manage our disorder when it occurs. So before we get into questions and answers, I wanted to go ahead and jump into the game. Because when we jump in the exercise, you'll all be broken out into smaller rooms, and we'll be going around, looking and seeing how everybody's doing, answering questions. I think that through that exercise, you'll get more clarification.
Hey, Paula, because of our laptop swap, I'm not sure if I'm a host, and I'm not seeing the link to the breakout rooms, and I only got people assigned until I had to do the swap.
Okay.
So
I do have you as a co-host, but let me go
yeah,
ahead
co-host doesn't cut it for that. Yeah,
gotcha.
we experimented with that the other day.
All right, here you go.
Okay, so Paula, why don't you do this? Why don't you show how the game works while I get the rest of the people assigned?
Okay. So we're going to break out into Zoom rooms for 15 minutes. We might go a little longer if you guys are really, interacting and learning a lot. We ask that every room come up with a leader. And that leader is going to be using leadership as a service. And they're going to be the tiebreaker if there's a lack of consensus. They're the one that also, hopefully, or maybe someone else is going to help the team in utilizing Miro. So if there's somebody on the team that's already familiar with Miro, it would be a good idea to have that person really, play the role of a scribe. Let's take a look at the board. So what you'll notice is if you go to this board that there's a room number. So if you have any questions about what room number you're in, if you look at breakout room, and you can see your name under the number of the room. If you have any questions, by the way, throughout all of this, please raise your virtual hand. We'll find you.
Well, and you'll know what room you're going to, because as soon as I open the rooms, you're going to have to click a dialogue to agree to join, and I think it'll show you what room.
So what we did was use the hero story. And in this story, Sarah is our hero. She's an inexperienced Scrum Master, and she's working in a business line where there's a lot of things going on. You guys are her guides. You are her Agile coaching team. We're asking you to use the Cynefin template below to determine the complexity domain of the problems she's facing. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick one of these problems. You're going to look at the domains. You're going to discuss it and determine where the problem should fall, which domain. Once you've done that, we're going to ask you to pick one problem in each of the domains and discuss, do we need more information? What is the smallest experiment we could run that would give us information to come up with a solution? What is the riskiest assumption that relates to this problem. The riskiest assumption is, it's the assumption that if we get this piece of information wrong, it could be a disaster. We could actually cause more harm than good. So we absolutely don't know what's going on here. We need to ask ourselves, do we need an expert? Would an expert in this area help us to establish the cause and effect relationship? And is this the most valuable thing that we could do for Sarah? So we're going to go ahead and have you go into breakout rooms. I'm going to send you this link in chat.
Yeah, so I kind of recommend that one person on the team be the person moving the little red problems, so that, but everyone else can get to it, so that if you want to zoom in to read some text that otherwise you maybe can't see. But it's best if you don't have everybody trying to move things at once. That gets a little chaotic, no pun intended. One other thing is that, and Paula, you're going to add the timer to the Miro board, correct?
I will.
Yeah, it'll be, I think, 20 minutes. And here's the thing, don't stress over, did I get through all of the problems? If you guys find that after 15 minutes or so, you was like, well, I haven't had time to ask any of these questions, picking one in the domain. So manage your time so that you spend, maybe 2/3 of your time categorizing these problems into the domains, and then move on to answering some of these questions with, one per domain.
We have a question.
Sorry to interrupt. We don't seem to have permission for the Miro board.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. I sent you the wrong link.
Well, now you've seen all our secrets.
Oh, no.
No,
All right.
No,
you
you saw
have
nothing.
access.
You saw nothing because you couldn't get to it. That was the super secret board, apparently.
We just
Still
need
figuring
that.
out.
Anyone with the link has edit access. That would be the one we want.
Yeah, can you get to that one?
No, it's still.
Paula, it says anyone with the link, no access. You need to switch that to anyone with the link can edit. Go back to that share.
Are we
Yeah.
getting a link through the
I
email?
know.
Is that what I'm understanding?
It's in the chat of Zoom.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you.
The chat.
This time it'll work, guys.
Woohoo!
Fail fast.
That time it did work for me.
Yay. Yeah, I see everybody jumping in. Okay, so are we ready to break everyone out into their rooms?
I'm going to hit the button now, so you should shortly get a prompt to join the room.
Please make me a co-host so I can go to another room.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
Can you make me a co-host?
Done.
Thank you.
Yep.
How's it going in the other room?
It's going. It's a wide variety. Like in one room where they're all doing it in parallel. One guy just decided to start, and so then they're all doing it in parallel, and then they're going to
That's
discuss.
fine.
And then you've got Steve and one other guy that I know that you know. They're being very methodical, and I love the way their conversation's going though. So this is awesome.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Oops. Oh,
We can't hear you, Dennis. We're back.
Oh,
Oh, we're back. Okay.
not that that would happen, but.
Oh, I was giving everybody an extra minute.
That was really fun. That was a
That
really good
helped.
exercise that you.
That
put together.
was.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. And
We needed more time.
Yeah.
No kidding.
you know what? We're going to give you these templates because I like to develop templates and then just give them away, much like we do at the games. And so if you want to play some of this with your team, or maybe your
Yes,
product
ma'am.
manager and your team, or your maybe who I don't know. Okay, so let me come on. Did anyone feel like the problems that were presented could end up in different domains?
absolutely.
Definitely.
Most of them.
Yeah.
And what did
We
you
put
guys?
them often in between.
And did you guys discuss how would we get to the point where we knew exactly what domain it needed to be in? No.
We went quickly.
Okay. So
but
if
no.
since we're going to give this to you, then maybe you want to do that at some point. Actually look at that and say, so how would I determine? Would I get a subject matter expert? Would I do some tests? Would I do some competitive analysis? See what the competitor is doing? Like, what would I look at to be able to determine the domain?
Bring one of you into our room.
You know, I loved how all of you had very different ways of going through this exercise together. I thought it was great. It was brilliant. I loved that you were able to adjust it based on how you guys wanted to work together. So let's move on. So systems thinking. So Cynefin framework is a way for us to take a step back and think about things from a systems perspective. Breath first. When we're thinking from a systems perspective, then we're looking at overall structures, we're looking at patterns, and we're looking at cycles. And what that allows us to do is come up with better solutions. Instead of tactical solutions, we end up with strategic solutions. The examples of where you can find models and patterns that provide systems thinking is Cynefin, the Business Agility Institute, Xscale and the Xscale Alliance, and Tameflow, Steve Tennant. What I would say is that in my experience, larger organizations with legacy systems tended to be more complex when you're talking about an agile transformation. There were just so many different variables. And so that required systems thinking. And if we try to come in with a one-size-fits-all approach, we're actually could make the situation worse. This is the world of business agility. So the first thing to consider is what domain we're in, then what patterns are based in that domain, and then what practices we could use to solve the problem. Notice the customer is in the center, in middle. So we're not focused on process and we're not focused on technology. We're focused on the customer all the time. The second thing to notice is that our leaders, our suppliers, our partners, and our workforce are all pretty much at the same level. I know that sounds radical. Think about it this way. If we get all of these different stakeholders with their different perspectives at the table and collaborating, creating a unified vision, we're going to end up with better quality, high-performing teams, better products, and the focus will remain on the customer. The domains are operations, so operational efficiency. To gain operational efficiency, we look at process agility, structural agility, how we're organized, technical agility, and then enterprise agility. So for example, technical agility would be DevOps. Structural agility would be like the Camelot model with Xscale, or where you might have tribes. And so you have different teams and the teams are organized into streams, like value streams.
Like Spotify model.
The Spotify model, yeah. Financial agility. So I don't know if you've noticed, but in a lot of corporations, decisions are made based on reducing operating costs and almost solely on reducing operating costs. But you might have noticed that, wait a minute, it looks like we're making decisions that in the long run is going to make this very inflexible. We might even create shortcuts, spend less money to get talented engineers, but then we're going to have technical debt. So you're going to see that, wait a minute, it looks like we're trading off the long run for the short run. So there's a big movement in the Agile community, business agility community around throughput accounting. I'm not going to get into that because that could be multiple workshops, but go to Tameflow, look for the Tame Your Workflow book. It's also provided as a reference at the end of this presentation that we'll hand out. Mindsets. So when we're talking about learning systems, ecosystems, we want to have a growth mindset, right? We're empirical process control people. We all have growth mindsets. We want to try something out, experiment, see what happens, continuously improve. So you can actually design your organization in such a way that the structure of the organization and the compensation for the organization really favors learning. Like learning is a valuable product in the organization itself. Then there's collaboration. This is how we work together across teams, across silos. We do what we can to break down those silos and we get better products and we serve our customers. And autonomy. So if you guys have read Dan Pink's novel, he talks about drive. That's the name of the book. And he talks about how do you engage people? Well, you give them purpose, you help them gain mastery, and then you give them autonomy. And what you'll find is when you do this, people are going to show up and work hard and be dedicated. If we don't do that, then we're letting our teams down. So we had another game to play or exercise. We're going to go back to Zoom rooms, but this time we're going to have 2 Zoom rooms.
Oh, you're making me work hard now. That's
I see.
okay. I can do it.
Okay.
So give me a minute and I'll move people.
While you do that, I'm going to show them really quickly what the next exercise looks like. By the way, if you guys like this and you want to put this on your own Miro board, there's ways to just copy and paste. And just let me know if you need, I'm going to give you my information so you can reach out to me if you need some help. Okay, we're going to play this game.
Well, I'm not quite ready. So entertain the troops for another minute. I have to move people one at a time, it looks like. So I'm getting there.
Okay.
Why don't you tell a little anecdote about Dave Snowden and what he's up to, a little more detail.
Okay, this is fun. So I'm friends with a number of people that eat, drink, and breathe business agility. And we happen to be on Facebook and talking about social unrest and what happened at the Capitol last week. Well, Dave Snowden is a friend with one of my friends. And we were talking about, how do we solve this problem? So me being the way that I am, I said, hey, Dave, you have these wonderful tools. And this seems like a wonderful, this is like really wicked problems. We're in chaos. It's very complex. What can we do about this? So that's what spawned the conversation where we ended up on the phone and he said, well, actually, I'm negotiating a contract with, Republicans and Democrats. And his solution is very ingenious. So he collects information, big data, quantitative data, but then he does things like create a trio. And so in the local community, a trio may be somebody who's in one group, one political group, somebody who's in another political group, or maybe it's an educator and somebody in law enforcement and someone in psychology. And so he gives them a package, and with this package, they collect information, and then they go ahead and combine these stories that people tell. And they combine those stories with quantitative analytics. Then they look at these stories, and instead of saying, yeah, I don't like your idea or your concept, they look at these and they say, I want more stories like this, where this young person who was disconnected, didn't have friends, stuck in their house, started doing badly in school. Now he's doing well, and he's part of this community. So he gets people to move away from their particular beliefs and assumptions and mental models and just look at together the problem at hand. And he says he's getting really great results from this. People are crossing, the political line and meeting together, coming together with solutions.
Okay, we're ready to go if you want to explain how it works.
Okay. So this is similar. I've identified some of the, pretty common problems, pretty common organizational barriers once again.
Right.
But this time, we're going to move these barriers into one of these categories. So this all relates to business agility. So if we're talking about social systems, this is about all the people. The leaders, the employees, the suppliers, our partners. And here we're talking about things like leadership agility, strategic agility, modes of communication, formal and informal agreements and relationships. And that's social systems. Or one of these organizational barriers to performance could be around mindset. So we've got a fixed mindset instead of growth. We don't have alignment and autonomy. There's little collaboration. We don't have anything set up in our organization to promote collaboration. and maybe we don't have a learning ecosystem. Then there's operational efficiency. And I think all of us are very comfortable with this world, right? This is the world we spend a lot of time in. This is technical agility, structural agility, now how teams are organized cross-functionally, how they, are organized in tribes, process agility, and enterprise agility, like even being organized in value streams. And then finally, financial. How do we make decisions about how we spend money and how we generate revenue? How are those decisions made? Are those really focused on our customer? So Rich is going to go to one room. I'm going to go to another room so that we can facilitate this conversation.
All right, so this time you're either going to room 1 or room 2. So here you go. Room 2, I'm going to join. Oops, no.
Okay. So are we ready to wrap up?
Mhm.
Okay.
No, people want to keep going 2 more hours.
Don't ask me, I'll do it.
I was having fun.
We'll have to stay on mute so you don't hear our tummies grumble.
Right, exactly.
So, by the way, if you guys haven't heard about the Agile 2020 Reflect, okay, there are 300 different workshops and seminars that are available in the month of February from global leaders. I know that Steve Tendon, Peter Merrill, Scott Ambler, all the big hitters. They are offering all kinds of workshops. And then you've got really creative and talented people up and coming that are offering them. So go to the website, see what looks interesting to you. And I highly recommend that you just sign up for a few.
And this is all free?
Yeah, it is. It's all free. It's like a grassroots movement. And it's really to reflect back on all the years of Agile. Peter Merrill is a patron, and he has a wonderful interview that talks about what his mindset is and how he developed his practice and his models and why he thinks the way he does, which is interesting.
And he is the CEO of Xscale, and he has the smoothest talking voice you've ever heard.
He actually told me he practiced, but he does have a lovely voice. So in March, the Xscale Alliance will be providing a new XBA course. We've got a lot of models, games, and exercises. And I think the best thing about it is inclusion in a very active learning ecosystem.
And Paula is a co-developer of the course and a co-trainer. She's too modest to say that.
And then transformational coaching, we do regular transformational coaching where we support each other in moving from possibility and vision personally to actionable results. We actually apply 40X to ourselves as individuals.
And if you're not familiar with 40X, the 4 disciplines of execution, message me. I'm the 40X guy at my company.
I thought that was like a training program, like P90.
Yeah, you do it on the Peloton. That's,
Yes, we have a Peloton at home, and yeah, we do our 40X right on that.
So we're going to send this out, but there's some additional learning available. This is a fun I got this at STDI, but it talks about all the
It sounds like a disease that you didn't really want to get.
It talks about all the different ways that you can think back and say, am I a systems thinker? And how do I do these things in my life? So you might want to just go through that and think about it. We describe mental models, and we provide references where you get some of the best references on mental models in the knowledge work and organizational performance world. Same thing with patterns. Have you guys seen how wolves change rivers?
Nope.
Have you seen that? Go home.
Yes,
And-
it's amazing.
Everyone is home, Paula.
I'm doing my Gracie Allen. So yeah, it's wonderful, and it really brings home the idea of ecosystems and how we're all interconnected.
It's an awesome video.
Peter Merrill discusses learning ecosystems. We have the theory of constraints, where to go for that. Dave Snowden's latest article, where he talks about big, thick, rich data. And then if you haven't checked out the Agility Health Radar for Business Agility, you might want to take a look at it. So I hope you guys got some value from this session, and I have a request to make. I'm going to give you access to all of these boards. I hope you improve them. Some of them will improve, some of you guys will improve them by tomorrow morning. And if you do, can you share what you've done with this meetup again? And then guess what? We're a learning ecosystem. So I give you some materials, some templates. You put your own spin on it. You give it back to us, and there you go.
Yeah, thank you. I love the collaborative aspect, and I knew that you would bring that and a wealth of knowledge and resources for us to be able to, walk away with and put to good use. I did have one comment because Daniel Lynn is on this call, or he was a minute ago. And I remember going to class with him and Richard Dolman, and they were talking kind of Cynefin models. And I don't know what the deal was, but I guess at the time I looked at it and it looked a lot like math to me. And I completely shut it out. Their explanation was excellent and very detailed, but I really did walk away from it thinking there's no way I will ever be able to use that with my team because there's grids and things, and I don't know. Just so thank you for putting some sanity around it and making it very contextual and easy to explain with exercise. It gave me some confidence walking away being like, oh, I totally get that. Even if it is math, I can relate that to somebody else. So appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And no offense, Daniel, it was a great class.
None taken. I actually really liked the explanation too, because and I know different people hear concepts different ways, and yeah. So I'm glad it connected this time for you, and thank you for showing me another way of doing it, Paula.
Yeah, can we trade?
Sure.
So tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock, you'll be doing a workshop on the hardcore mathematical models behind the Cynefin framework.
With homework and worksheets and yeah.
Thank you very much. We really appreciated being able to come and share this with you. And we'll see you again next session, next work group.
Thank you
So much.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to see you all. Thank you.
Great to see everyone.
Stay
Thank you.
well.
Right.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.